let me start at the beginning. I always was an overweight child growing up in Dubai, and I think when I went to Bangalore for university and high school, I lost all the weight because I ended up in a Jesuit hostel, and their idea of increasing the quantity of food was to add 2 more buckets of water to the sambar, the stew. I came back to Dubai, went back into a sedentary lifestyle. My life was all about my work, and since I worked on commissions only, I decided to work weekends. I worked long hours. I ate at random hours. I ate the wrong kind of food, whatever was easy, whatever was quick. I think my idea of workouts and exercise at that point in time was more around playing basketball once a week and then spending the rest of the week recovering from that one game. So when we got married, Sangeeta and myself, I was 134 kilos. In the course of the 2 or 3 years after, I decided I needed to lose some weight. I went on a controlled calorie program and I started working out, and I dropped about 30 kilos and I injured my knees and I put all the weight back on, and we went through this process back and forth a couple of times. And then we had my daughter Leah in 2011, and I noticed one thing that constantly happened was that Sangeeta had more energy to play with Leah, who was really active, than I did. I would get exhausted by just tying my shoelaces, to be honest. And I really thought I needed to make this change. And to be honest, I thought at the time what I was going to do was to take a shortcut and have a gastric sleeve done, a bariatric sleeve as they call it. And the months that followed thereafter, I ended up losing about 50 odd kilograms in the next 5 months. After which, I realized that my body could now move more freely, and I decided to get into workouts and training, and it began with 30-minute workouts twice a week in our garden, and then it moved to 3 times a week, and we increased the intensity to 45 minutes. Then we went from there to a gym, and from there to CrossFit, and from there to ultra running, and then triathlons. The interesting thing is what came with the bad lifestyle, and by that I mean this was being overweight, eating all kinds of food. It kind of went hand in glove with me working long hours as well. I remember my typical day in my office used to be 4 2-hour meetings, pretty much back to back. My office used to be set up like a doctor's practice where we had a waiting room, and a client came and waited till I finished my preceding meeting, and as soon as I finished, the next one began. And after I was done with those 4 meetings a day, roughly about 6 days a week, I then had to take care of the rest of the business. So at one point again, I reached a situation where I had acid reflux and a loss of voice and a host of issues with my health. Over the course of the next 3 years after I sold my business, I again re-looked at what was important to me as an individual, the type of clients I wanted to work with, and what were the other goals I wanted to achieve in my life that would allow me to lead a whole person life. And one thing that came out to me was I wanted to be involved in a lot more adventure-based sports. At the same time, activities that could challenge me, not just physically but also mentally. And the concept or the idea of running an ultra marathon across the Sahara Desert for over 6 days in harsh conditions and over 250 kilometers sort of was planted in my head. One of the books that I read a few years ago and then constantly listened to over audio and YouTube was Tim Ferriss' book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And the bit that came out to me was, if you're looking to cut down the number of hours that you want to work, then you need to find an activity that could replace work in those hours that you're planning to let go of. And I realized that activity for me had to be training, running. The purpose behind that was to ensure that you don't lean in towards work if you have a free day. And the purpose was to block out that day so that you could just spend that day focusing on another activity. So I decided to take up ultra running and running the Marathon des Sables and I cut out my Thursdays, and this allowed me to now focus on a 4-day work week, allowing me to be more efficient in the background with my clients, allowing me to have my most successful financial year of 2019 as well, and allowing me to complete the 250 kilometer ultra marathon across the Sahara Desert twice. There are a host of apps as well as tools that I use from a planning perspective that help keep me focused on my goals, whether it's training or work and things like that. The simplest thing that I can tell you to use is a pen and a paper in the absence of a whiteboard or a white wall. And the pen and paper is really simple. It helps me write down my goals every morning, erase them, or rewrite them the next day. I don't use a pen and a paper today. I realize that this is such an important part for me that I've painted a whole wall in my office with idea paint, which essentially converts the wall to a whiteboard. And every morning, on a focus day, I wake up, I erase my goals and I rewrite them down. The whole point behind that is to ensure that my day is intentional, that every morning or every day I'm doing things in the day that take me towards my goal. Whatever the goal may be, whether it's financial, whether it's family, whether it's physical, spiritual, whatever the case. So this is one of the simplest things, is a pen and paper and just writing that goal down. The second thing, of course, is any calendar app. If you are prioritizing what is important for you, then it's important to block that time out in your calendar in advance. There is another app that is called Commit to 3. And to be honest, I feel like I may be ADD. So I need to constantly find a way to recenter myself. So one of the things that I use is an app called Commit to 3. And this app allows me to focus on 3 things that I have to complete for the day. What that lets me do is focus on what we call the high value target over here. These are the 3 things that I have to complete for my day to be successful. You know, we're all human at the end of the day. I have this 80-20 rule that if I get it right 80% of the time, I'm in the good space. So I'd like to say that I push 100% of the time and make sure I do it every single time, whether I feel like it or not. The honest truth though is, there are days where your mind may be super strong, but your body is just not willing to cooperate. There are times when the weather is not in your control. Again, a good example of this would be, we had a red flag on the beach yesterday while I was supposed to go and do a 1-hour open water swim. Now, that is beyond my control. And this red flag got put on the beach at 3 p.m. and my swim was at 4:30 p.m. There was no way for me to make any of those changes. So at that point in time, I surrendered to it. But this is an 80-20 rule. 80% of the time, I'll make sure, whether I feel like it or not, it's about trusting the process. It's about doing those number of hours, putting in those number of hours to ensure that your end result is met. I think it's important to compartmentalize, but sometimes I feel that things that happen in the course of your day can actually encourage you to do more with the rest of it. For instance, when I'm having a tough day at work for any reason, I find that going out for a workout actually helps me deal with it better, because it's that time that I spend with myself, sitting and analyzing what has happened in the day, why certain things happen. So most of the time, what I notice is that actually having a workout at the end or beginning of a tough day or week or in the middle somewhere actually helps me deal with things a little better. I feel like a bad day can be turned around by a great workout.